All right, so you guys wanted to dive into the Bruce Allen Davis story.
Oh, yeah.
And trust me, this one is a wild ride.
Yeah, buckle up.
Davis was this American serial killer,
Uh-huh.
convicted of 3 murders, but he claimed there were way more.
Oh, wow.
Like 30, he said?
Howdy.
From 1971 to 1982.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and the crazy part is,
What?
a lot of these confessions, they were never actually confirmed.
Oh, right.
So we're going to try to figure that out today.
Sounds juicy.
Right, like how much of this is true, how much is him just
Lesson with people.
messing with people.
Exactly.
Okay, so what do we got to work with?
We've got court records, biographical info, and some news article.
All right, let's see if we can unravel this web.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then.
Right. So Davis was born in Toledo, Ohio, back in 1948.
Toledo.
But his family moved to West Virginia pretty soon after.
That's right.
Normal start, right?
Seemingly.
But then when he was 13,
What
Davis claimed something happened.
was that?
He said he was sexually abused.
Yeah. And he actually claimed that that's what made him hate
Oh,
pedophiles and homosexuals.
that's heavy.
It is heavy. And it's important to remember, we don't know if that's actually true.
Right, we only have his word for it.
Exactly. It's just his claim.
But even still, if it is true,
Yeah.
it could help us understand,
His motivations.
his actions later on.
Totally.
A complicated guy.
Yeah. And it gets even more complex when you add in some of his other interests.
Like what?
So he loved music.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So much so that he dropped out of school to try to be a singer.
What?
Yeah. In New York City.
Wow, big dreams.
Right. This small town kid going to the Big Apple.
Didn't work out, though, it sounds like.
No, it didn't. He had to drifting around.
Oh, so that's how he got into trouble.
Yeah. From job to job, petty crimes here and there.
Always searching for something, huh?
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, that drifting, it's important.
Why is that?
Well, because it kind of sets the stage for his crimes to, escalate.
Okay, I see. So like a slippery slope?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But then we get to 1972.
All right, what happened in 72?
This is when he has his first real run-in with the law.
Uh-oh.
He gets arrested in Washington, D.C.
For what?
for the murder of James Earl Hammer.
Okay.
And get this.
Yeah.
Hammer was a businessman, but also a friend of Davis's.
No way. A friend.
Yeah, a friend.
What kind of friend were they, though, I wonder?
We don't really know the details of their relationship.
Suspicious.
Right. But what we do know is that Davis's lawyers, they argued it wasn't premeditated.
So not a planned thing.
Exactly.
Clever lawyers.
And it worked because instead of a murder conviction,
Yeah.
he got manslaughter.
Oh, wow.
And he was sentenced to 15 years. But get this.
What? There's more.
He could get parole after just 5 years.
Wow, a legal loophole.
Right. And remember that because it's going to come back later.
I will.
But before we get to the escape, let's talk about the victims we know for sure
Okay.
that Davis murdered. Right.
Right.
The first one, Reverend Carlo Barlacina. Okay.
This really shows how random some of his crimes were.
How so?
Well, this was back in 71. The Reverend was on his way to California,
Okay.
had a stop in Chicago,
Uh-huh.
and he was murdered in his hotel room.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it wasn't just the murder. Davis also stole checks from him.
He stole from him too.
Yeah, and about $1,000 in cash.
So it wasn't just about killing.
Right. It was a robbery, too.
Makes you wonder what his motive really was.
Yeah, like, was it rage? Was it just opportunity? Was it some combo?
Right?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's a good question to keep in mind, though, as we go on.
Definitely. So let's move on to 1982.
All right, 82. What happened?
So now Davis is in prison, right?
Uh-huh.
And believe it or not, he was considered a model inmate.
What?
Yeah. He even got his sentence reduced.
Wow. Good behavior.
But then, out of nowhere, he escapes.
He escapes.
Yeah. And this escape, it was like something out of a movie.
Real. Tell me about it.
He cut through the prison fence,
Wow.
attacked the warden, Joseph Cushman, with an axe,
Oh, my gosh.
stole the warden's truck, and took off.
That's crazy.
I know, it's hard to believe.
So that means
Yeah.
this escape, it led to his second confirmed murder.
You got it, Joseph Cushman.
The warden.
Yeah, poor guy just doing his job.
Right. Terrible.
Shows you how dangerous Davis was, you know.
If he could just snap like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so he escapes.
Uh-huh.
What happens next?
Well, this is what really makes this whole case famous.
Okay, what is it?
The confessions start.
He starts confessing.
Yeah, so while he's being questioned,
Mm-hmm.
Davis just comes out and confesses to 33 murders.
33.
Yeah, 33.
Oh, my goodness.
All over the place. D.C., New York City, Nevada, California.
Wow, he got around.
He did. Louisiana, even Puerto Rico.
So he was a traveling killer.
Right. Moving from place to place, leaving victims in his wake.
And here's where it gets tricky, I bet.
You got it.
Some of these match up.
To unsolved cases.
Yeah, but some are just completely unknown.
It's like he's sending us down a rabbit hole.
That might not even exist.
Exactly.
So how do we even begin to,
Figure out what's real.
separate fact from fiction?
Right, that's the challenge.
Okay, so where do we start with that?
Well, let's look at the details that did check out.
All right, like what?
So Davis talked about targeting gay men,
Okay.
especially in D.C.
Uh-huh.
He would charm them, then murder them, and dump their bodies in the C&O Canal.
Oh, wow, specific.
Right, and he gave a lot of details.
And they were consistent.
Yeah, across multiple confessions. Very chilling.
Makes it seem more believable.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, what else?
Well, he also talked about going to gay bars,
Okay.
using his looks to gain people's trust
To what end?
so he could rob them and kill them.
Ugh. Awful.
It is awful, but again, we can't verify all of that.
Right. Some we can, some we can't.
Like he claimed he murdered 4 men near the Iwo Jima Memorial,
The Iwo Jima Memorial.
but they couldn't find any evidence of that.
So was he lying?
We don't know. Maybe he was
To
exaggerating.
make himself seem more,
Notorious.
yeah, scarier.
Exactly.
Or maybe those victims really are out there.
It's a terrifying thought, right?
Yeah, and one that investigators had to take seriously.
For sure.
This is what makes it so tough.
What do you mean?
Well, how do you investigate when the person confessing might be unreliable?
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a big hurdle.
Huge, especially with cold cases.
And to make it even more complicated,
Uh-oh, what?
there's the New York City connection.
Okay, what about it?
So officials there confirmed Davis did 5 murders in their city.
5 more.
Yeah, but they won't release any details.
Really, why not?
Who knows? It's a mystery.
Well, what do we know about the New York stuff?
The only case they've publicly linked him to
Yeah.
is the murder of Eric Cherkasian.
Who was that?
He was a vocal teacher,
Oh, wow.
strangled in his hotel room back in 1970.
That seems different somehow.
How's he?
Well, more like a targeted killing.
Yeah, you're right.
Not those random robberies Davis also talked about.
So maybe he had different motives, different methods.
Or maybe, like you said before, he was just trying to control the story,
Yeah, create his own narrative.
even while facing the consequences.
It's definitely a possibility, right?
It fits with what we know about him, always drifting, never fitting in.
Maybe this was his way of finally leaving a mark.
Even if it was a mark of,
Infamy.
Yeah, exactly. Dark legacy.
And for investigators, what a mess to try and untangle.
I know, right?
They had to take every claim seriously,
Yeah.
try to confirm details, find witnesses, evidence.
All while knowing he might be messing with them.
Yeah, leading them on wild goose
That
chases.
puzzle with the wrong pieces mixed in.
You got it.
You never know if you're on the right track.
Makes those cold cases even harder.
Right. Imagine dealing with all that before DNA testing was common.
Wow.
You're relying on old records, faded memories, maybe a little physical evidence.
And don't forget, his crimes were all over the place. Oh, right, different states.
Yeah, coordinating with different jurisdictions, piecing together a timeline.
Across years and miles.
A logistical nightmare.
It is. But it shows how dedicated those investigators are.
They don't give up.
They don't, even when a case stays unsolved.
Right, there's always hope.
New info might come out, a witness, new technology.
It can take years, decades even.
It can, and for the families, that wait is agonizing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're left with these unanswered questions.
It's just a profound sense of injustice.
And that constant question.
What really happened?
Yeah, what really happened to their loved one?
It's heartbreaking.
It is. We can't forget that behind all
The
this,
files, the headlines.
there are real people whose lives were shattered.
We have to remember that human cost.
Absolutely.
And Davis, he took a lot of those answers with him.
You're talking about his suicide,
Yeah, in 1988.
found hanging in his cell.
Took his motives, the truth, all of it with him.
It's a sadly common ending for serial killers,
They want that last bit of control.
even in death.
Yeah, but for the families, the investigators, the search goes on.
It does, and that brings up some tough ethical questions.
Like what?
How much do we trust a confession when the person who made it is gone?
Can't question him anymore.
Right? Can't cross-examine.
That's a question legal experts are still debating today.
They are, on one hand, a confession is powerful evidence.
It is.
But with someone like Davis,
So manipulative.
right, you have to be super careful
It's a balancing act,
between getting justice and making sure everything's based on real proof.
Not just the words of a guy with his own agenda.
Exactly.
And that circles back to what we've been saying all along.
About separating fact from fiction.
Yeah, we may never know the whole truth about Davis,
Or why he did what he did.
but we have to look at the evidence, be honest about what we don't know,
And remember the human cost.
to try and understand this case as best we can.
It's complex and disturbing, but that's what makes these deep dives so interesting.
They make you think,
They do. They make you confront uncomfortable truths
question what you believe.
and recognize that real life is rarely black and white.
It's full of gray areas.
It is, and sometimes that's the most important takeaway.
The understanding, grappling with the unknown,
It's all part of the
to
process,
search for truth.
which is what we're all about here.
Exactly. 33 confessions, it's mind-blowing.
It is, right?
Like some we can verify, some we can't. It's almost like
He was trying to create this,
persona.
this image of being this, huge serial killer.
Like the number mattered more than the truth.
Exactly.
What's that all about?
Yeah, what's the psychology behind that?
Was it guilt? Or was it to, shock people?
Right. What was he trying to achieve?
It's a good question.
And remember, he tried to plead insanity at his trial.
Oh, yeah, for the warden's murder?
Right, but they did that psych evaluation.
Uh-huh.
And they said, nope, he knew what he was doing was wrong.
So, competent to stand trial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So even if he had, whatever internal struggles.
The court said he knew right from wrong.
Yeah. So it makes those confessions even weirder.
It does. What was the point,
Maybe he was just trying to, I don't know, have some control.
Control, yeah, I can see that.
Facing a life sentence.
He's telling his story his way.
Yeah. Becomes the author of his own, messed up story.
It's kind of chilling when you think about it like that.
But kind of fits, right? Always drifting,
You're
searching.
never quite finding it.
So he makes this huge impact. Even if it's,
A terrible one.
Exactly.
I bet those investigators are pulling their hair out.
Oh, absolutely. They had to take every single claim
Seriously.
and try to confirm it, find witnesses, evidence.
All while knowing he might be playing them.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's like a puzzle with fake pieces mixed in.
You said it.
Never knowing if you're on the right track.
Makes those cold cases so much harder.
Especially back then, before DNA was really a thing.
Oh, yeah. Think about it.
Relying on old paperwork, memories that could be fuzzy.
And not a lot of physical evidence to work with.
Plus, don't forget, he committed crimes in multiple states.
Oh, right. All over the place.
Coordinating with different police departments, trying to build a timeline.
Spanning years.
It's insane, the amount of work.
But it really shows how dedicated those cold case teams are.
They're like detectives from a different era.
They are. They don't give up, even when a case goes unsolved.
There's always that hope, right?
Always. Some new information, a witness coming forward.
Or maybe some new technology that can help.
Yeah, it can take a long time, though.
Years, even decades.
And for the victims' families, that wait is just brutal.
It's unimaginable.
They have all these questions, this feeling of injustice.
Wondering what really happened.
Yeah, what happened to their loved one?
It's just awful.
It is. And we can't forget, behind all the case files and the headlines.
There are real people hurting.
Yeah, real lives that were changed forever.
We have to remember that human cost.
We do.
And sadly, Davis, he took a lot of those answers with him.
When he died by suicide,
Back in 1988, they found him hanging in his cell.
took his motives, the truth, everything with him.
A lot of serial killers, it ends that way.
They want that final control.
Yeah, that last word.
But for everyone else, the families, the investigators, the search goes on.
It never really ends.
It makes you think, how much can we trust a confession?
When the person who gave it is gone.
Exactly. We can't question it anymore.
No cross-examination, nothing.
It's a big ethical dilemma, right?
It is, and legal experts are still debating it.
On the one hand, a confession is strong evidence.
It's hard to argue with.
But with someone like Davis, so manipulative.
You have to be extra cautious.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Trying to balance justice with making sure everything's based on facts.
And not just what Davis wanted us to believe.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to that core issue we keep coming back to.
Separating truth from lies.
Yeah, we may never know everything about Davis.
Or why he did what he did.
But by looking closely at the evidence
Being honest about what we don't know.
and remembering those who were hurt,
We can try to understand this case the best we can.
as complex and disturbing as it is,
That's what makes these deep dives so fascinating.
they really get you thinking.
They do. They make you confront things.
The dark side of human nature.
And question what you believe.
Because real life is rarely simple,
It's messy, it's complicated,
full of gray areas.
and sometimes that's the most important thing to remember.
The not knowing, the uncertainty
It's all part of the process.
of searching for the truth, trying to understand.
That's what we do here.
So we've gone through this whole twisted story,
Yeah, from troubled childhood to prison,
chilling
the
confessions.
whole 9 yards.
But what does it all mean? Like, what can we actually take away from this?
That's the real question, right?
It's like these cases, they force us to look at
The dark side of humanity.
exactly the fact that people are capable of this kind of violence.
It really makes you think, like, what makes a serial killer?
Right. Is it something they're born with? Or is it, how they were raised?
It's never that simple, unfortunately.
No, it's always a bunch of things, right?
Yeah, psychology, their childhood, who they hung out with.
Maybe even some biological stuff
And each case is different, like trying to solve a puzzle.
where you might not even have all the pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A puzzle with missing pieces.
It's like, I don't know, trying to understand a hurricane.
Okay, I see what you mean.
We can study it, track it, see the damage it does.
But you never know exactly what it's going to do.
Right. There's this element of, like, unpredictability.
A force of nature you can't fully control.
And I think that's what makes these cases so fascinating.
And scary.
Yeah, because they remind us that bad things can happen,
Anywhere, anytime.
even from people who seem totally normal.
Like Davis, model prisoner 1 minute.
Brutal killer the next.
Shows you, looks can be deceiving.
Yeah, you never really know what's going on inside someone's head.
Which is why it's so important to be aware.
Trust your gut feeling.
And if something feels off, say something.
We all have a role to play in keeping each other safe,
Absolutely. And we have to support those working to solve these cases.
especially those cold case units,
They're doing such important work,
often with not a lot of resources.
but they never give up.
They're trying to bring peace to families who've been waiting for answers.
Sometimes for decades.
It's about more than catching the bad guy,
It is. It's about honoring the victims
making sure their stories are remembered
and learning from what happened.
so we can prevent it from happening again.
That's where things like, criminal profiling come in.
Right, understanding how these killers think.
Why they do what they do.
Maybe then we can spot the warning signs.
Get people help before it's too late.
It's a race against time, a battle against that darkness.
But it's a fight worth having.
Every life we can save is a victory.
A step in the right direction.
Well said. So, I hope this deep dive into Bruce Allen Davis has given you all some things to think about.
Some insight into this complex case.
It's definitely a case with more questions than answers.
A reminder that truth is often hard to find.
And justice isn't always simple or easy.
But there's also hope.
There is.
Yeah, because people keep searching, keep fighting for what's right.
Those cold case investigators, the families, they never give up.
It's a testament to the strength of the human spirit.
And that's something worth remembering, even in the face of such darkness.
It's a good note to end on, I think.
I think so too. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone.
And keep those lights on.